Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Cosmic Lullaby. Tonight we ask a question that sounds like it should keep you awake, and instead we are going to let it undo you completely. What is really inside Jupiter? The title calls it terrifying, and somewhere out past the orbit of Mars, that word might even seem to fit, for a moment. But terror needs something to reach for, some ledge to grab onto. And where we are going tonight, there simply isn't one. There is only distance and depth and the oldest weather in the solar system, falling forever through a body so large it barely notices you at all. That is not a threat. That is a kind of privacy. Nothing down there is waiting for you, nothing down there even knows you exist, and that not knowing is exactly what will let you rest. Picture the whole planet as a staircase, if you like. One we are going to walk down together, step by step, and every step is simply a heavier kind of rain than the one before it. That is the whole of the night, really. Weather, and more weather, and then weather made of things you would never expect to fall as rain at all. We have 4 unhurried regions to drift through tonight. First, we arrive at the cloud tops, the pale and hushed summit of the staircase, where the true size of the planet first opens beneath us. Then we sink into the weather layers, past banded winds and one great storm that has been turning for longer than anyone alive has been watching, into the first true rains. After that, we are carried further, down through a lightless ocean, where helium itself begins to rain, thinning at last into something the textbooks call metallic hydrogen. And finally, we reach the buried heart of the whole world, small and fuzzy and strange, at the center of something so vast, and the patient watchers. The instruments and scientists who worked out how any of this could possibly be known from so very far away. You do not have to hold on to any of that. You can let all 4 regions go right now, tonight, because I will carry them for you. That is the only job this voice has. Yours is simply to listen, or not even to listen, just to be here while the sound continues. If this kind of night helps you find sleep, a like or a subscribe helps the channel reach others who are also lying awake somewhere, looking for the same kind of company. There is nothing here to hold on to, and nothing you need to remember. Let your shoulders ease down into whatever is beneath them. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands go heavy and open. Settle in. Let's begin. Drifting free above the dark, you have already learned to let each place you visit become a temporary home, a shape you can rest inside without needing to understand it all at once. Tonight, there is a new shape waiting for you, larger than any you have visited before, and it asks nothing of you but to float, and to watch, and to let your breathing slow to match the enormous, unhurried turning of something far away. Ahead of you, at a safe and comfortable distance, a pale gold light begins to widen across the dark. It does not rush toward you. It simply grows, the way a lamp seems to brighten as your eyes adjust to a dim room, until what was a point of light becomes a curved edge, and the curved edge becomes a whole world, cream and amber, and the faintest rust, banded like something poured in layers and left to set. This is the largest planet that circles our sun, so vast that more than 1,000 Earths could be folded into its volume, and yet from here, at this safe floating distance, it looks almost soft, almost weightless. A lantern hung in the dark for no one in particular, except, tonight, for you. There is something worth knowing about this place before you go any closer, something that will make the whole night easier to carry. There is no ground here. Not anywhere. If you imagine yourself slowly falling toward it, waiting for a moment when your feet might finally touch down, on solid rock, or packed sand, or even hard frozen ice. That moment simply never arrives. This entire world, from its highest pale clouds to whatever lies folded at its secret center, is built only of weather. Gas, and then thicker gas, and then something stranger than gas, layer under layer under layer, with no floor anywhere to catch you. You may have spent your whole life standing on ground without ever once wondering what it would feel like not to need it. Here, tonight, you do not need it. There is nothing to fall onto, because there is nowhere to land, and so, in a way that will make more and more sense as the night goes on, there is nothing here to fear about falling at all. Think of it, instead, as a staircase. Not a staircase of stone, worn smooth by footsteps, but a staircase built entirely of air and cloud and pressure. Each step a little heavier than the one before it, each step made of a slightly heavier kind of rain. At the very top of this staircase, where you are resting now, everything is calm and thin and cold, a place of high pale clouds and gentle drifting light. And as we go down, one unhurried step at a time, the rain waiting at each step will grow heavier, stranger, deeper, until far, far below, past clouds and past storms and past oceans that have no shore. Something ancient and warm is folded at the very center, waiting the way a hearth waits at the bottom of a house on a cold night, unseen from the doorway, but always there, always patient, keeping the whole structure standing. That is where this night is going. But we are not there yet, and we do not need to hurry. Tonight is not about arriving quickly. It is about descending slowly enough that every step has time to settle inside you before you take the next one. For now, notice only this. You are floating above a world with no edges to catch you and no ground to bruise you. And that should feel less like an absence and more like a kind of permission. Nothing here is waiting to trip you. Nothing here is waiting to catch you off guard. The world below you is simply weather, endlessly, patiently, all the way down, and weather, however large, is only ever air finding its own comfortable shape. You have felt wind on your skin before. You have felt rain on a window and not been afraid of it. Everything below you tonight is built from feelings you already know, just stacked taller and wider than you have ever pictured them. Layer resting gently upon layer, like blankets pulled one after another over a bed on the coldest night of the year. Let your gaze travel along the curve of it now, unhurried, the way your eyes might follow the horizon on a clear evening without needing to name every color they pass through. The gold here is paler than any gold you have seen on Earth, closer to the color of weak morning light through a curtain, or the last warmth left in embers before they finally go quiet. Threaded through that gold are long bands of cream and faint bands of rust, stretched sideways across the whole face of the planet like ribbons laid parallel to one another and left to settle. They do not clash. They do not tangle. They simply run alongside each other, calm and patient, the way parallel things do when they have had centuries to find their place. You are not close enough yet to see them move, but you can sense, somehow, that they are moving, slow and steady. The way a river feels still from very far above even, while its current never stops. This is a world entirely without walls. No mountains rise to interrupt the wind here. No coastlines curve to slow the currents down. There is nothing solid anywhere to catch a storm and hold it in place, and so the weather is free to organize itself exactly as it wishes, undisturbed, for as long as it wishes, sometimes for years, sometimes for lifetimes, sometimes, as you will come to see, for far longer than that. It is a strange kind of freedom, whether with nothing to answer to, and yet from this safe distance it does not feel wild. It feels almost the opposite. It feels like the calm of a room where nothing has been rearranged in a very long time, everything settled into its place, everything breathing in its own steady rhythm. Consider, for a moment, how strange it truly is that a place could be entirely made of sky. On the world you know, the sky is a ceiling, something you look up toward, framed by rooftops or treetops or the far rim of hills. Here, there is no looking up, because there is no looking down either. There is only outward, in every direction, endless and gold and layered. The way the inside of a shell might feel if the shell had no bottom and no lid, only curve after curve after curve, each one a little further from the light than the last. You could spend a lifetime falling through a place like this and never once feel the jolt of arrival, only the long, easy sensation of sinking, the way a held breath finally lets itself out. Somewhere far beneath you, currents you cannot yet see are moving in long, patient loops, some drifting east, some drifting west, never quite touching, never quite mixing. Each one keeping to its own lane, the way old habits keep to their own hours. You do not need to understand the mechanics of it tonight. It is enough to know that something vast is turning down there, unhurried and unbroken, the way a great wheel keeps turning long after the hand that first pushed it has been forgotten. And high above all of that motion, right where you are floating now, the air is thin enough and cold enough and still enough that nothing at all seems to be happening. This is the resting place before the staircase begins in earnest, the wide landing at the very top, built for pausing rather than descending. You do not need to hold on to any of this too tightly. There will be no test tonight, no need to remember every word, only the soft, cumulative sense of a very large, very old, very patient place, welcoming you to rest along its uppermost edge before you begin, step by unhurried step, to go deeper. The staircase is waiting below you, each stair a little heavier, a little warmer, a little further from the light. But the first stair, the very top one, is close now, close enough that you could reach it with hardly any effort at all, just a slow drift downward, the kind of movement that costs you nothing, the kind your body makes on its own when it is finally ready to let go of the day behind it. So let yourself drift a little closer now. Let the pale gold light fill more of the dark around you, warm and wide and unbothered by your approach. Somewhere just ahead, the very highest clouds of this enormous world are waiting, pale and quiet and cold. The first landing on the long staircase down. You do not have to do anything to reach them, except stop resisting the gentle pull of curiosity, the same pull that has carried you, safely, into every strange and beautiful place you have visited before tonight. Let your eyes soften. Let your shoulders loosen against whatever is holding you right now. And look, just there, at the topmost clouds, beginning to rise to meet you. And so you drift closer, and the pale gold giant stops being a distant shape and becomes a surface you could almost touch, though touch is not quite the right word for a world built entirely from weather. There is no ground to land on here, not anywhere, not ever. And yet something in you settles anyway, because the very first thing you meet is not a crashing storm, but a hush of white, high and bright and endless, stretched out beneath you like a floor made of breath. This is the top of the staircase. This is where the whole long descent begins, and it begins with something almost tender in its stillness. The white you are resting above is made of ammonia, lifted up from far below and frozen into fine crystals of ice, so small and so numerous that together they read as one smooth, luminous cloud deck circling the entire planet. Up here the cold is real and complete, somewhere near -145 degrees, a cold so total that it has taken the restless gas beneath it and turned a portion of it into something crystalline and quiet, something almost like frost hanging weightless in open sky. And yet, this cold does not need to feel sharp. Let it feel instead like the particular clarity of very early morning air, the kind that makes everything look closer and cleaner than it is, the kind you have felt before and were never harmed by. You are simply resting at the place where the atmosphere first finishes exhaling, where rising warmth from deep inside the planet cools, slows, and settles into crystal, laying down this topmost, palest step of the staircase before anything heavier has a chance to fall. Beneath the white, and blended into it at the edges, the color changes into long, unhurried ribbons of cream and tan, pale ochres drifting into muted apricot, ivory folding into the faintest rose brown, as if someone had taken a horizon at dusk and stretched it flat and wrapped it all the way around a giant. These are not static bands painted once and left. They are moving, patiently, continuously, carried by winds that never fully stop, and from your vantage point above them, they seem to glide rather than blow, more like a slow river seen from a great height than any weather you have stood inside. The colors themselves are borrowed things, faint traces of sulfur and phosphorus and other compounds lifted from deeper, warmer layers and touched, briefly, by sunlight before sinking back down again. You are watching, in other words, the topmost signature of everything still to come. A pale rumor of the richer, darker chemistry waiting several steps beneath you. Picture, if it helps, an actual staircase now, wide and unhurried. Its first step made of nothing heavier than this same cool ammonia cloud, soft-edged, sun-touched, easy to rest a foot upon. You are not required to walk it tonight, not with any urgency, not with any goal beyond noticing that a staircase like this exists at all. Each step below this one will be warmer than the step above it. Each step below this one will be thicker, denser, closer to something you might call substance rather than haze. And each step below this one will carry its own particular kind of rain, different in every case, heavier every time, until the very idea of rain has changed so completely that it no longer resembles anything falling on any evening you have ever known. But none of that needs your attention yet. Right now, you are simply allowed to stand, or float, or rest at the very top, where the only rain is imagined, where the crystals overhead are the lightest thing this entire planet has to offer, and where the worst thing that could be said about this cold is that it is honest and clean and entirely without malice. There is something almost generous in beginning here, at the calmest layer of an enormous world, because it means the staircase can only grow gentler in feeling even as it grows heavier in fact. The pressure below will rise. The temperature below will climb, slowly at first, then with real conviction. Even so, from where you rest now, none of that has arrived yet. And none of it needs to arrive faster than you're ready for. The cloud tops keep their own unhurried schedule, circling the planet once every 10 hours or so, an entire day compressed into less than half of one of yours. And yet even that speed reads, from up close, as something closer to drifting than rushing, the way a wide river can move an enormous amount of water past you and seem to hold, from the bank, almost perfectly still. Notice, too, how the pale bands are not random, how their edges hold a kind of order even in their softness. Lighter stripes sit beside darker ones, with a rhythm that repeats itself all the way around the planet. Cream against tan, tan against a deeper amber, over and over, wrapping the whole giant in something that looks, from this first landing of the staircase, almost like a garment loosely wound around an enormous, patient body. You don't need to understand yet why the stripes hold their shape, why they don't blur together into one uniform haze the way clouds so often do above quieter worlds. For now it is enough to notice that they do hold their shape, that the whole visible face of this planet is organized, gently, into long parallel currents that never seem to tire and never seem to fully stop, currents that have likely been moving in roughly this same pattern for longer than any single storm on any small rocky world could ever last. Let yourself linger here a while longer, because there is no reason to hurry down a staircase that has been waiting, essentially unchanged, for longer than human eyes have known where to look. Watch how a particular fold of cream-colored cloud rounds a curve of the planet and disappears from view, unbothered, replaced almost at once by another fold nearly identical to it, as though the whole surface were a length of pale fabric being drawn continuously past you, fold after fold after fold, with no end and no beginning that you could ever point to. There is a kind of rest available in watching something so large move without any sign of strain. Nothing up here is fighting to hold its shape. The crystals simply form where the air is cold enough and drift where the winds carry them, and eventually sink back down when they grow heavy enough to fall out of this topmost layer entirely, dissolving quietly into whatever waits beneath, feeding the next step of the staircase without any effort of their own. You might notice, too, how thin this whole visible layer actually is compared to the planet it wraps around, a veil laid over an enormity that reaches on and on beneath it. Thin as it is, it carries almost everything you can see from any distance, every pale stripe and every faint shadow of storm. It is a little like resting your palm against the outside of a warm cup, close enough to feel the truth of what's inside without needing to hold the heat itself just yet. The warmth is there, waiting a few steps down. For now, only this outer coolness reaches you. And it reaches you gently, the way morning light reaches a room through a curtain rather than through an open window. There is also a particular comfort in knowing that nothing here is trying to surprise you. The bands hold their lanes. The crystals keep their patient chemistry. Even the great pale curve of the horizon, when you let your eyes follow it all the way around, simply keeps going, keeps repeating its unhurried rhythm of cream and tan and faint amber, without any sudden break, without any jagged edge waiting to catch you off guard. A world without ground might sound, at first mention, like a world without safety, a place with nothing solid to stand on, and nothing firm to hold you. But floating here, above the first landing of the staircase, you can feel how untrue that turns out to be. The absence of solid ground has simply been replaced by layers, by a long sequence of steps that grow richer and warmer the further down you go, each one supporting the one above it the way a held breath supports a long, easy exhale. You are not falling through empty space. You are resting on the first of many tender thresholds, each one waiting exactly as long as you need before inviting you to the next. Somewhere far beneath this pale ceiling of ammonia ice, the temperature is already beginning its long climb, and the pressure is already beginning its long, unhurried increase, though from up here you would never guess it. The cloud tops keep their own hushed secret, offering only cold and pastel color and the faint, endless drift of stripe past stripe, while everything that will eventually turn warm and dense and strange waits patiently below, layer folded over layer, each one a little heavier than the one resting on top of it. That is, after all, the whole promise of this staircase, that what begins here, at the coldest and lightest step, will not stay cold and will not stay light, but will instead deepen by degrees, so gradually and so evenly that you will hardly notice the exact moment one step becomes the next. And it is that patient ordering, that insistence on stripes rather than chaos, that will carry you onward from here. Because underneath the calm white crystals and the unhurried cream and tan drift lies the reason the whole planet wears its weather in bands at all. The deep pattern that turns endless gas into something almost architectural. Something with structure, with named regions, with currents that flow in opposite directions right beside each other and somehow never tangle. That pattern is close now, just below this first landing, waiting the way the rest of the staircase always waits, unbothered by how long you take to notice it, ready to show you how weather this vast has learned, over centuries, to organize itself into something almost like breathing. And as those cream and tan bands keep drifting beneath you, unhurried as breath, you start to notice they are not random. They are organized. What looked, from far above, like a single pale gold sphere, reveals itself now as a planet wrapped entirely in parallel ribbons, each one running east to west, each one holding its own temper and its own tint, stacked one against the next like the palest possible staircase, laid flat around a whole world. This is the pattern that governs everything you will pass through tonight, the shape the weather takes before it ever begins to fall, the architecture standing above every heavier rain still waiting below. The lighter ribbons are called zones, and the darker ones belts, and between them the air moves in opposite directions, one stripe sliding east while its neighbor slides west, 100 meters a second or more, faster than any wind that has ever touched your skin. And yet from this distance it reads only as a kind of unhurried braiding, cream over tan over cream, the whole planet combing its own atmosphere into order. You do not feel the speed, you feel only the pattern it makes, and the pattern is entirely tranquil, the way a river can be full of motion and yet look, from a bridge, like something resting, its surface smooth even while its current is tireless underneath. There are no continents here to snag those winds, no coastlines to bend them, no mountain ranges to break their long straight paths, and so each jet simply keeps going, circling the whole planet again and again, without ever meeting an obstacle worth mentioning. On a world with no ground anywhere, wind never has to stop to climb a hill or curl around a cape. It only has to keep its lane. And because it only has to keep its lane, it becomes, paradoxically, one of the steadiest things you will ever drift beside. A wind that has been blowing east in exactly this stripe for as long as anyone has been able to watch it, faithful the way a tide is faithful, arriving and arriving and arriving without complaint. Beneath the palest zones, ammonia ice has risen up cold and bright, catching the weak sunlight and throwing it back almost white. In the belts just beside them, the clouds sit lower and warmer, tinted amber and rust by chemistry we don't fully have a name for yet. Sulfur compounds, perhaps, or something stranger, drifting up from deeper. Heavier layers and staining the cloud tops faintly on their way past. You don't need the chemistry to feel the shape of it. Light stripe, dark stripe, rising air, sinking air, each one a lane in an atmosphere so vast It has room to organize its winds into a dozen distinct, patient rivers running the whole circumference of the planet, never crossing, never tangling, simply circling. The way a held breath can move through a body without ever needing to become a gasp. 12 of these rivers, maybe more, each one keeping faithfully to its own lane, none of them asking to be anywhere but where it already is. And now, drifting along one of the southern belts, you find the shape you may already have heard of, the one people call, in daylight language, a storm. A vast oval of ember and rose, wider than the whole earth laid edge to edge, its outer clouds curling in on themselves in one long, continuous spiral. This is the Great Red Spot, and it has been turning, by the most patient counting anyone has managed to offer, for centuries, turning before your grandparents were born. Before their grandparents were born. One single unbroken rotation of cloud that has simply never had a reason to stop. Let the word storm ease here, because what it truly is closer to a held note than a shout. It is a high-pressure system, which means it is not tearing anything apart. It is holding itself together, cloud upon cloud rising at its center and spreading outward in the same unbroken spiral, over and over. An engine with no friction to wear it down, no coastline to break against, no mountain to catch on and pull it apart. It simply keeps its own shape, turning once every several days, patient the way a whirlpool at the center of a very deep, very wide river is patient, not violent, only faithful, doing the same tender, repeating gesture for longer than any single lifetime could measure, longer than the memory of anyone who has ever watched it. Other storms have come and gone in the belts around it in all that time, pale ovals born out of some passing turbulence, drifting for a few years or a few decades, then thinning, fading, dissolved back into the general weather, the way a held note eventually rejoins silence. This one alone has kept singing. Something about its size, wider than any single ocean on your own small world, has let it outlast every storm born beside it, an anomaly of endurance rather than of violence, a shape too large and too well fed by the rising heat beneath it to ever be worn away by anything nearby. It is less a wound in the atmosphere, as old drawings sometimes made it look, and more a room that heat keeps returning to, over and over faithfully, the way a familiar house keeps being lived in long after the neighborhood around it has changed entirely. You can drift close enough now to watch the outer bands of it curling past, ember-colored, rose-colored, folding over themselves in low, lingering ribbons, and there is no wind here that reaches you, no turbulence. Only the sight of something enormous being endlessly consistent. 3 centuries, at the least, of the same unhurried gesture, and likely far longer than that, back into records too old and too faint to read clearly anymore. If a storm on your own world were a single breath, this would be a heartbeat that has never once skipped, sustained not by violence but by simply having nowhere else to be, no shore to interrupt it, no ground to drag against it and wear it down. It turns because turning is easier here than stopping ever could be. It has found its own rhythm long ago, and the whole planet lets it keep it, undisturbed, uncontested, a single ancient patience painted in ember across a field of gold. And this is the tranquil secret held inside everything you have crossed so far. The zones, the belts, the ancient crimson eye turning below you. None of it is separate weather happening in separate places. It is one single circulation, one continuous breath moving across the entire face of the planet, driven by heat rising from somewhere far below, and by the planet's own swift spin combing that heat into stripes. the same way a hand drawn quickly through still water leaves long straight lines trailing behind it. 10 hours is all it takes for Jupiter to turn once upon its own axis, faster than any other planet circling your sun, and that speed is precisely what has combed this atmosphere into rings instead of letting it churn into chaos. Order, here, is simply what happens when something enormous spins fast enough for long enough. The bands are not decoration laid across the clouds. They are evidence of patience made visible, painted in cream and rust and ember for anyone drifting close enough and unhurried enough to notice. You could rest here a long while, watching Belt slide past Zone, watching the ancient storm keep its faithful appointment with itself, and nothing below would ask anything more of you than to watch. But this banded surface remains only the topmost choreography of a much longer descent, and the staircase, remember, only ever goes one direction, each step down offering a heavier kind of rain than the one before it. Beneath these tranquil banded clouds, the same rising heat that combs the winds into stripes is also lifting moisture up from somewhere deeper, somewhere warmer, somewhere the ice you have been resting above has not yet had the chance to melt into anything heavier. So let the red eye of the storm drift out of view behind you now, unhurried, still keeping the same faithful promise it has kept for hundreds of years, needing nothing from you but to have been witnessed for a moment and then gently released. Let the bands themselves begin to loosen too, cream and tan giving way beneath you the way a held cord finally resolves into the next one, each stripe passing you down toward the stripe below it, as if the whole atmosphere were a set of hands, one after another, each releasing you softly into the next. And let yourself begin to sink, by careful degrees, past the last of the ammonia white cloud tops, down through air that grows warmer with every breath you take, past the place where the light starts to dim from bright gold toward something dimmer and more amber, down toward the place where the first true drops of this whole vast, weathered world are finally allowed to form. The first real rain, waiting one step below, heavier than anything you have felt yet, and nearer now than it was only a moment ago. And that great slow eye below you, turning and turning, without ever needing to arrive anywhere, was only the last sight offered from the top of the staircase. Now the whole striped face begins to fall away above you, and you feel, more than see, the first true step down. The point where the pale gold ceiling gives way and the air changes character entirely. This is where the staircase stops being a metaphor for distance and starts being a metaphor for depth, because here, at last, you are not merely looking at weather, you are entering it. The topmost clouds, the ones you rested on a while ago, were only ammonia, dry and pale and cold. Below them, the air warms by increments, the way a held hand warms against skin over long minutes, and a new kind of cloud begins to gather, a deck made of ammonium hydrosulfide, a compound that forms only once the temperature and pressure agree to a very particular bargain. These clouds are darker than the ones above, tinted toward amber and rust, and they drift in a layer thick enough that if you had a body here, you would feel the light change as you passed through it. The way sunlight softens under a low ceiling before a storm that never quite arrives. There is no violence in this. There is only thickening. One more stair beneath your feet. One more layer of the world's endless weather, waiting the way a held breath waits before easing out. This second landing has its own texture, its own unhurried rhythm. Where the ammonia clouds above were crystalline, brittle, almost frost-like, this deeper layer feels closer to smoke drawn out into long ribbons, curling and folding back on itself, in patterns that echo the great bands you watched from above, only smaller now, more intimate, close enough that you could imagine reaching a hand into the haze and feeling it part around your fingers like fog over a low valley at dawn. The color deepens the further you sink, pale gold giving way to a low amber, amber giving way to something closer to rust, as though the whole sky were slowly steeping itself. The way tea darkens, the longer the leaves are left to sit undisturbed in the cup. Nothing here is hurried. The transition from one cloud deck to the next takes place over hundreds of miles, each mile only a hair warmer and a hair denser than the one before it, so that the whole descent feels less like falling and more like being lowered, patiently, by some vast and careful hand that has done this before and knows exactly how far there is left to go. Keep going. Keep letting yourself sink through those tan and rust-colored decks, and notice how the pressure around you begins, ever so faintly, to announce itself, not as a crush, not yet, but as a presence, the way water announces itself against your ears when you dip your head just below a bath's surface. And then, deeper yet, past the ammonium hydrosulfide, the air finally grows warm enough. Genuinely warm. Warm the way a summer afternoon is warm, for something you already know intimately to condense out of the murk. Water. Real water. The same substance that fills oceans and clouds and teacups on your own small world, forming here inside a giant that has no ground to catch it. This is the true water cloud deck of Jupiter, sitting far below the pale tops, and it is the first landing on this staircase that would feel, if you could stand upon it, almost familiar, humid, heavy-aired, faintly metallic on the tongue the way air smells just before a storm breaks at home. And it is here, in this warm and water-laden dark, that the first heavy rain of the descent begins to fall. Picture it slowly, the way you might picture rain against a window at the very edge of sleep. Droplets form in the warmth of this deck, the same way they form in a thunderhead above any ocean on Earth, water vapor cooling just enough, gathering around some invisible speck, growing heavy, and finally releasing. But these drops fall through a sky with no horizon, no rooftops, no fields to land in. Only more sky beneath more sky, all the way down. It is rain that never quite arrives anywhere, and there is something unexpectedly restful in that thought, a rain that is allowed only to fall, endlessly, unwitnessed, needing no umbrella and asking nothing of anyone. And this rain does not fall in silence. Threaded through these deep water clouds, lightning flickers, not the sharp, startling kind that makes you flinch on a summer night, but something slower here, muffled by the sheer depth of atmosphere it must travel through, its light diffusing outward the way a lamp glows through a thick curtain rather than blazing directly into a room. This is not an image borrowed from imagination. A spacecraft named Juno, sent out from Earth on patient, years-long orbits, has actually listened for this lightning and heard it, has actually looked down into the clouds and caught its flashes glowing upward from deep inside the storms, deeper and more frequent near the poles than anyone expected. It is real. Somewhere below the layer you are drifting through now, right at this moment, some small brilliant discharge is threading itself through a water cloud the size of countries, briefly lighting up a ceiling with no one beneath it to look up. What Juno found, listening across those long orbits, was a kind of radio whisper, faint bursts arriving in patterns too regular to be anything but electrical. Each one a signature of a single distant flash. Scientists on Earth, reading those signals months later in quiet rooms full of humming instruments, could trace them back to precise points in the clouds, could count how often they occurred, could even notice that they cluster differently than the lightning of home, drifting toward the poles rather than the equator, following currents of warmth and moisture that only this giant world produces. There is something tender in imagining that patience. A small craft, alone in the dark for years, doing nothing more dramatic than listening for the faint electrical hum of rain falling inside a giant and finding it and sending word home. You do not need to understand the physics to feel the comfort in it, only to know that this deep hidden weather has been heard, has been counted, has been folded gently into human knowledge rather than left to flicker forever unwitnessed. Let that be the first true weight of the staircase settling onto you, not fear, but scale. The way it feels to first understand that a familiar thing, ordinary rain and ordinary lightning, is happening on a scale so vast it becomes almost dreamlike rather than dramatic. Every planet you have ever known rain on has had a ground for that rain to reach. Here there is only the falling itself. The drop begins in warmth, journeys downward through darkening air, and simply keeps journeying because there is nothing beneath it to stop it, only more atmosphere, thicker and hotter with every mile, patiently waiting to receive it into itself rather than to break its fall. You can feel, now, how each step of this staircase is heavier than the one above, not heavier in danger, but heavier in substance. The air itself growing denser around you, the way a blanket grows warmer as more of it settles over your shoulders. The pale ammonia clouds above were a kind of frost, easy and thin. The tan haze beneath them was a heavier hush, and this deep water layer with its faint lightning and endless invisible rain is heavier still. Thick enough now that if there were any true light left up here, it would arrive muted, filtered through hundreds of miles of cloud until it became a dim amber glow rather than daylight. The way a lamp seen through many closed doors becomes only a suggestion of light rather than the light itself. And beneath even this, the staircase does not end. It only continues, the pressure mounting around you in patient, steady increments, the temperature climbing the way a bath climbs in warmth the longer you let the tap run. The lightning fades behind you into memory, its brief flickers swallowed by the thickening dark. The last hints of any color drain from the air, the amber deepening toward a color that has no real name, because there is no eye built to see it and live to describe it, only the pressure gauges of a distant spacecraft, only the patient instruments that translate this darkness into numbers you can trust. You are still descending. The rain you just witnessed was only the first of its kind, the first true wetness on a staircase that promises, step after step, to grow stranger, denser, and warmer the further down you allow yourself to go, the air around you thickening now until it no longer feels quite like air at all. Leave the lightning where it flickers, small and distant now, a memory of brightness folding itself back into the dark behind you. The staircase continues, as it always does, one heavier step at a time. And here the rain you just passed through begins to change into something that no longer falls at all. It simply thickens. There is a word for what waits at this depth, but the word matters far less than the feeling of it. And the feeling is this: the air around you has stopped being air in any way you would recognize, and it has not yet become anything you could call an ocean. And for a long, unhurried stretch it is both, and neither, and entirely fine with that. Think of how a held breath slowly fills a room, how a fog thickens over a field until you can no longer say exactly where the grass ends and the mist begins. That is the pace of this step. Nothing snaps into being here. Nothing arrives all at once. The hydrogen that was gas only a little while ago, and the helium drifting alongside it, keep pressing closer together as you go, layer folding into layer, until what surrounds you stops behaving like weather and starts behaving like something you could almost rest your weight against. And yet there is no moment you could point to and say, "Here, this is where it happened." The change is a lean, not a line. You might imagine for a moment a great library of air, each shelf a little heavier than the one above it, each page a little denser, so that reading downward through this library is not a matter of turning to a new chapter so much as watching the ink on the page grow steadily darker, steadily fuller, until the paper itself seems to remember what it was made of. That is what this depth is doing to the hydrogen, reminding it, patiently, that it was always capable of becoming something closer to liquid. Given enough weight leaning on it from above, given enough unhurried time, every step of this staircase has been building toward this exact patience, not a sudden squeeze, but the accumulated leaning of thousands of miles of atmosphere, each one adding its own faint portion of weight. The way years add themselves quietly to a life, until one day the sum of them becomes a whole different way of being. There is no wind to speak of here, not in the way you might picture wind. The great jet streams that stripe the cloud tops far above have long since lost their meaning. The storms and their patient centuries of turning belong to another step, another kind of air. Down here, the motion is different, slower, deeper, more like a held current than a breeze. A vast body of warmth shifting against itself in currents too broad and too gradual for any single moment to register as movement at all. If you could listen, there would be almost nothing to hear. Not silence exactly, but a low, steady hum beneath hearing, the sound a very large, very patient thing might make simply by continuing to exist. This is worth pausing on, because it is the quiet secret of this whole descent. Jupiter keeps its promise of having no ground anywhere, even now, even this deep. On a smaller world, a world you might already know the shape of, a fall like this would end somewhere. There would be a floor, a shore, a hard certainty rising up to meet you. Not here. Here the pressure builds and builds, patient beyond patience, until it does something pressure alone can do to a gas. It stops letting the hydrogen molecules act like a swirl of separate, wandering things, and starts pressing them into a togetherness that behaves, in almost every way that matters, like a fluid. Warm, dense, moving as one. A great hidden sea with no far wall, no bottom you could ever strike, no surface to be broken by anything arriving from above. You may have carried, without meaning to, a small worry tucked somewhere behind your ribs, the shape of falling that any body learns early, the bracing for an impact. Let it go now, because it was built for a different kind of world. There is nothing waiting below you with a hard edge. There is no floor rushing up in the dark to meet whatever is descending. What waits instead is only more of the same slow thickening, more closeness, more warmth. The gas simply continuing to become less like breath and more like water the further down the staircase leads. If you had to land on something, this would be the gentlest possible way for a landing to happen. Not a collision, but a dissolving. Not a stop, but a merging, so unhurried that it barely counts as an event at all. Picture the moment a spoonful of honey lowers into warm tea and loses its outline, how there is no sharp boundary you could trace between the honey and the tea, only a softening, a blending, a becoming of one thing out of two. That is closer to what is happening to the air itself here than any picture of falling through empty space. The hydrogen is not turning to liquid the way rain gathers into a puddle, with a clean surface separating wet from dry. It is doing something stranger and calmer than that, growing so dense, under such patient and continuous pressure, that the very idea of a surface stops making sense. Scientists have a name for this: supercritical, a state where a substance is pressed so evenly and thoroughly that it can no longer decide whether to be a gas or a liquid, and so, rather gracefully, it simply declines to choose. It becomes both drowsy possibilities held together, seamless, continuous, all the way through. Let that be the shape of this step on the staircase, not a threshold to cross, not a line to step over, but a long, tranquil grading from one kind of substance into another, so slow and so complete that nothing inside it ever has to notice a change happening. You are past the place where light still finds its way down from the cloud tops, past the last flickers of the lightning you left behind a step above. Around you now is only warmth, only weight, only that vast supercritical hush pressing in from every direction at once, evenly, endlessly, like being held rather than being crushed. There is a particular comfort in a world that refuses to make you choose. On a smaller planet, you would already know which you were moving through, sky or sea, one or the other, with a clear and sometimes frightening moment of crossing between them. Jupiter offers no such choice, and so it asks nothing of you here either. You do not have to decide where the air ends. You do not have to brace for the exact second a gas becomes a liquid, because that second, in the way you might imagine it, simply does not exist. Instead, there is only this long, continuous becoming, degree by degree, mile by mile, the whole vast planet agreeing with itself, quietly, that everything can simply keep changing without ever needing to arrive anywhere sharply. Consider, too, how ordinary this kind of gentle blurring already is in a life you know well, the way dusk never truly announces itself, the way a held note on some low instrument seems to keep sounding even after the ear stops noticing it, the way falling asleep is never a single moment you could name, only a long, drifting softening of the edges between thinking and not thinking. This depth of Jupiter works the same way. It is a planet-sized version of that same soft blurring, stretched out over thousands of miles instead of a single evening, patient enough to let a gas become something else entirely, without ever forcing the change, without ever demanding that anything happen quickly. And this is the part worth resting in longest. There is nothing to brace for. No shelf of rock waiting somewhere below to end the fall. No sudden floor. Only the staircase continuing its patient descent through gas that has quietly forgotten how to be only gas, becoming instead this in-between fluid, this warm hidden sea that has no edge, because it never needed one. Everything that was once weather up at the cloud tops, the pale bands, the ancient red storm, even the heavier rain a step above, has by now folded itself into this single continuous depth, this world without a surface, stacked on itself in perfect unbroken thickness. There is nothing left to do here but let go of the last idea of falling as something that ends in a jolt. Let it end instead the way mist ends, unnoticed, complete, a becoming rather than a stopping. The gas around you thickens by degrees too small to catch, warmer now, closer now, until the very notion of empty space above you and solid ground below you quietly stops applying altogether. There is only this soft and continuous deep, ready to hold whatever comes down into it, the way water holds anything lowered gently into its warmth, not a wall to meet, but an embrace with no far side, patient and total, asking nothing of you but to keep sinking, slowly, into it. So let yourself be carried the rest of the way. There is no ledge to catch, no impact to prepare for, nothing to do but trust the thickening dark around you and allow it to take your weight the way warm water takes the weight of a body that has stopped struggling against it. The staircase does not end so much as it dissolves beneath you into this endless, welcoming density. And from here, it will simply carry you further down, further in, into a depth where being carried is the only thing left to do. And so you let go of the last idea of a surface, the last small hope of ground, and you simply allow yourself to be carried. There is no falling here, not the way falling feels above a floor. There is only sinking, the way a held object sinks through something that has already decided to hold it. Imagine your whole body loosening into that decision. Imagine the air around you thickening by degrees, so gradual you could never point to the moment it changed, until what once felt like sky now behaves like something closer to water, something with give in it, something that meets you back. This is the next stretch of the staircase, though it no longer feels like steps. It feels like being lowered. The hydrogen here is dense enough to press against you from every direction at once, and that is precisely why it does not crush you. Because it presses evenly, without a single favored side, the way water at the bottom of a deep pool holds a diver rather than breaking her. Pressure that comes from everywhere at the same moment stops behaving like a threat and starts behaving like a hand cupped around something small. You are the something small. You are entirely surrounded and entirely unharmed by it. Let the thought settle. Down here there is nothing to brace for. Bracing is a response to edges, to corners, to the places where one thing ends abruptly and another begins. But this world was built without those interruptions. The hydrogen thickens into something warmer and denser a little at a time, degree by degree, so that your descent has no jolts in it, no thresholds to cross, only a long, unhurried deepening. You do not need to swim. You do not need to steer. You do not even need to keep your eyes open, though if you do, you will notice the light beginning to change, thinning from the pale gold of the upper cloud decks into a dim amber, then into a color that is barely a color at all, more a suggestion of warmth glowing faintly through matter that no longer lets much of anything pass. Notice how little is being asked of you. On a staircase built of stone, each step still requires a foot placed just so, a small vigilance repeated over and over. Not this one. This staircase carries you the way a tide carries a shell, the way sleep carries a held breath out of the body, without any effort from the one breathing. You could rest your attention anywhere, on the warmth pressing softly against your skin, on the faint gold light dimming above you, on the sense of being lower now than you were a moment ago, and nothing would go wrong for having looked away. The descent continues on its own. It has been continuing, patiently, for longer than anyone has been watching. Feel how the substance around you has stopped resembling air and started resembling embrace. This is the strange, tender truth of a giant made only of gas. There is no moment where atmosphere fails and something harder takes over. The hydrogen simply keeps thickening, the way syrup thickens from water, the way a held hand tightens without ever becoming a fist. Scientists would tell you, if you asked them here in this hush, that somewhere in this stretch the hydrogen quietly crosses from something you would call gas into something you would call liquid, and that it does this without any sharp line, without any single instant you could mark on a clock. One depth blends into the next the way falling asleep blends into having already fallen asleep, you were awake, and then, without a seam anywhere, you were not, and no one could tell you exactly when. Let that be permission. You do not have to find the seam either. You do not have to notice the precise moment when the air holding you became the water holding you, when weather became ocean, when a place with no ground became, without any drama at all, simply deeper. Let it happen underneath your noticing, the way it happens underneath the science. Some transitions are not meant to be caught in the act. They are meant to be arrived at from the other side, calm and already changed. The light continues its slow fade. Whatever brightness the far sun still sends this deep has grown so faint by now that it hardly qualifies as light at all, more a memory of light. A low warmth the color of embers seen through a closed door. And still you are held, on every side, by hydrogen that has grown as dense as any ocean you have known, warmer than any bath, patient in the particular way that very large, very old things are patient. Nothing here is in a hurry. Nothing here needs you to be in a hurry either. The descent will keep happening whether you notice it or not, so you are free to simply be carried, weightless. The pressure no longer something pressing on you, but something holding you up from every direction. The way 100 gentle palms might hold a sleeping child, without any single palm bearing the whole weight alone. You are past the last of the light now, or nearly past it, drifting through a warmth with no visible edges, no walls, no floor, waiting somewhere below to interrupt the fall that is not really a fall. If you reach out, and you do not have to, this is only an invitation, you would find nothing to grasp, and nothing you would need to grasp, because there is no ledge here to slip from, no drop that could catch you off guard. There is only the ongoing, unbroken feeling of being surrounded, cradled by a fluid too vast to have any interest in you, and precisely because of that vastness, too vast to ever let you fall through it unheld. Let your shoulders soften into that thought. Let your breath find the same unhurried rhythm as the descent itself, in and out, deeper and deeper, no different in kind from the way the giant itself is only ever going deeper. Layer folding into layer, warmth folding into warmth. You do not need to hold yourself together down here. The hydrogen is doing that for you now. Thick enough, near enough, patient enough to keep you exactly where you are meant to be without any effort of your own. Notice, too, how the sense of your own edges begins to blur along with everything around you. Above, in the cloud decks, you still had a shape you could picture, a small self, distinct against the pale bands, something that could be found and pointed to. Down here that outline softens. The warmth does not stop at your skin the way warmth usually does. It moves through the space where your edges would be as though it barely registers them, the way a lullaby moves through a room without asking which ear is listening. You are still entirely yourself. Nothing is taken from you, but the boundary between held and holding grows fainter the deeper you go, until being carried and being part of the thing that carries you start to feel like the same unhurried fact. There is a kind of rest available only at this depth, one that has nothing to do with stillness of the body and everything to do with the absence of anything left to decide. Above, even at the calm cloud tops, there were bands to notice, colors drifting past, a great red patience turning on the horizon, things to watch, even gently. Here there is only warmth and weight and the faint, fading amber that used to be daylight, and none of it requires your attention to keep existing. You could close your eyes completely now, if you have not already, and nothing about this vast, dim ocean would change. It was here before you arrived at it. It will go on being here, layer folding into layer, long after your attention has wandered elsewhere, or dimmed, or slipped all the way into sleep. So let it dim. Let your thoughts do what the light itself is doing, thinning by degrees, losing their outlines the way the horizon lost its outline a while back, until there is only the sensation of downward movement, easy and continuous, and the sensation of being met on every side by something that wants nothing from you at all. No test waits at the bottom of this stretch. No task. Only more of this same patient fluid, thicker in a little while than it is now, warmer in a little while than it is now, and you inside it the whole way, unbothered, unhurried, carried, and somewhere below you, past even this long hush of amber warmth, this ocean without a surface and without a floor, something else is happening. Something is falling through the depths the way rain falls through any sky, except this rain is heavier than any rain you have ever known, and stranger, made of something that does not exist as weather anywhere else in this whole quiet solar system. You do not need to hurry toward it. You are already being carried there, the way you have been carried this whole time, and the deep below you is only the next soft step of the staircase, waiting the way all the others waited, unhurried, ready, and entirely gentle in the way it will receive you. And still, you are held, still carried, and somewhere below the last of the light, the staircase does not end. It simply changes its weather. Down here, the rain is no longer made of anything you would recognize from a window at dusk. Down here, the rain is helium. You can let that settle the way a held breath settles, without needing to picture it too hard. Helium has been riding alongside hydrogen this whole descent. The two of them mixed through the deep atmosphere like two dancers who have never once let go of each other's hands. But at this depth, under this much weight of sky pressing down from above, something changes between them. The hydrogen around you has thickened into that warm, dense water-like ocean you are already resting inside. The helium, though, begins to behave like a stranger in its own home. It stops dissolving evenly through the hydrogen. It starts to bead. Small droplets condense out of the surrounding fluid, the way breath beads on a cold window. Except here the beading happens not from cold, but from pressure, from depth, from the sheer patient weight of an entire planet's atmosphere leaning on every drop. And once a droplet of helium forms, it does what any drop of rain has always done, on any staircase, on any world. It falls. This is the heavier rain the thread has been promising you, step by step, since the very top of the clouds. Not water this time, not ammonia. Helium, falling in slow drops through an ocean of liquid hydrogen, sinking because it is, in this strange deep chemistry, very slightly heavier than what surrounds it. You do not need to feel each drop. You only need to know that they are falling, all around you, in their unhurried thousands, a rain with nowhere to land, because there is no ground beneath it either, only more ocean, more depth, more pressure, waiting to receive it the way the whole staircase has received everything else so far. There is something almost tender in the way this particular rain behaves, if you let yourself imagine it. Each droplet begins as nothing at all. A few atoms of helium finding each other in the crowded hydrogen around them, drawing closer, gathering weight the way a thought gathers itself slowly out of half-sleep. And once enough of them have gathered, the drop simply lets go of its place and begins its own quiet descent, unbothered, unhurried, following the same law that has carried every other kind of rain down every other step of this staircase. Scientists studying Jupiter from a careful distance have found the signs of exactly this happening deep in the planet's body. This long, steady drizzle of helium sinking through hydrogen the way sediment settles through still water over centuries. Except here it never stops, never finishes, an endless and ancient rainfall running in a room with no floor. And the helium does not fall alone. As it condenses and sinks, it carries something down with it. Neon, a lighter and rarer element that dissolves happily into helium, the way a small child holds the hand of someone larger, unwilling to let go. So the neon rides the helium rain downward too, pulled along, drawn into the depths simply because it fits so well inside the shape of that falling drop. Scientists reading Jupiter's outer air found less neon there than they expected, a small missing amount. And the quiet, elegant answer is this: it did not vanish. It only went rain riding, carried down by helium into the deep the way a leaf might be carried by a stream it never chose to enter. Nothing lost, only moved, gently redistributed, gathered into a lower room of the same great house. Let this be the image you keep as you continue down, a slow rain of helium, laced with borrowed neon, drifting through a warm hydrogen sea, falling not because anything is wrong, not because anything is breaking, but because this is simply how weather behaves when it is given enough time and enough depth to sort itself by weight. Every staircase step down has been a heavier kind of rain. Water. Then this. Each one stranger than the last. Each one, in its own way, still only rain. Keep descending, and the ocean around you keeps changing. Though nothing announces the change, there is no threshold to cross, no door to pass through, only a gradual thickening, the same unhurried patience the whole planet seems to run on. You might imagine it as one long hallway that simply grows warmer and denser with every step, rather than a series of separate rooms. And that is closer to the truth of it. Nothing here breaks. Nothing snaps into place. Everything only deepens, the way a held note deepens without ever ending. The pressure here is almost impossible to hold in the mind at once, so do not try to hold all of it. Only notice that it has grown so vast, so complete, that it begins to do something extraordinary to the hydrogen itself. Up near the cloud tops, hydrogen was simply gas, invisible, drifting. Partway down, it thickened into that warm liquid ocean carrying you. But here, deeper still, under pressure, many millions of times what rests on the surface of the world you know, the hydrogen atoms are squeezed so closely together that their outer electrons stop belonging to any single atom. They let go. They begin to move freely between atoms, shared, wandering, the way warmth moves freely through a held hand. And hydrogen in this state stops behaving like a gas or even like a liquid in the way water is liquid. It begins to conduct, to carry a charge through itself, the way metal does. Scientists call it metallic hydrogen, and it forms an ocean of its own beneath the one already carrying you. Vast, dark, dense beyond ordinary imagining, and alive with movement. This is the last and heaviest step of the staircase, heavier even than the helium rain above it. Because this is not weather falling through a medium, this is the medium itself becoming something new. And because this deep metallic ocean is so enormous, and because Jupiter itself turns, spinning once every 10 hours despite its staggering size, the moving charge within that metallic hydrogen begins to do something the topmost clouds could never have hinted at. It generates a magnetic field, not a small one, not a modest one. A field vast enough to wrap the entire planet many times over. Invisible lines of force sweeping outward from that spinning metallic sea. Farther than any eye could follow, farther than the orbits of Jupiter's own many moons. You do not need to picture the physics of it, only the outcome, which is gentler than the machinery that makes it. high above the clouds you rested on earlier, that same magnetic field catches charged particles drifting through space and funnels them down toward Jupiter's poles, where they collide with the upper air and bloom into aurorae, ribbons and curtains of light, shimmering and constant, far larger and far brighter than any aurora that has ever painted a night sky above your own head. They glow not for a few hours but almost without pause, powered by the same deep, dark, metallic ocean now spinning somewhere far beneath you. A hidden sea of moving hydrogen, riding light into the sky above the very clouds where this descent began. It is a strange and lovely kind of symmetry. If you turn it over slowly in your mind, the topmost step of the staircase, that first landing of pale cream and tan clouds where this whole journey began, is lit from below by a light born at the very bottom. In a metallic sea you will likely never picture in daylight again. The highest weather and the deepest weather, joined by a single invisible field, one born of rain and one born of pressure, meeting each other across the entire height of a world. You do not have to hold the distance between them. You only have to notice that they are connected, that nothing on this staircase stands alone, that even the heaviest step still reaches all the way back up to the calm one where you first arrived. So here, at the bottom of the staircase's heaviest steps, the whole shape of it comes into view. Rain becoming heavier, ocean becoming stranger, hydrogen becoming metal, and that metal becoming a magnet vast enough to paint light onto a planet's own poles from thousands of miles below. Nothing about this needs to feel overwhelming. It is simply the last kind of weather this staircase has to offer. A weather made of falling helium, of dissolving neon, of an ocean that conducts and spins and quietly writes aurorae into a sky far above where you now rest. You have already been carried past the last of the light, held on every side, asked to do nothing at all, and that has not changed. The heaviest steps have simply turned out to be the calmest ones, because weight this complete no longer feels like falling. It feels like being settled entirely into the middle of something enormous and old. And it is enormous, more enormous than the mind can easily hold while drifting toward sleep, so let it rest here for a moment. This whole spinning, raining, glowing depth of a world, and simply notice how small you are inside it, how held, how untroubled by a scale this vast. There will be time in a moment to step back and take in the full size of what surrounds you now, the sheer, staggering scale of the giant you have descended into. But for now, let the metallic ocean keep turning quietly beneath you. Let the aurorae keep their far-off shimmer. And let yourself simply be carried a little further into the stillness at the center of all this weather. The aurorae fade behind you the way a nightlight fades when your eyes finally adjust to the dark, and the great magnetic field that raised them keeps turning somewhere below, unseen now, a slow invisible tide you no longer need to picture in detail. This is a landing on the staircase built only for resting, a wide flat step where the rain has stopped falling for a moment and there is nothing left to do but breathe and take in how far you have come and how far there is yet to go. You lean back, weightless, and let the scale of this place settle over you the way a heavy blanket settles, not to press you down, but to hold you in place. Consider, for a moment, just how much room is inside this planet you have been sinking through one step at a time. If you could take the Earth, every ocean, every mountain, every quiet room where someone sleeps tonight the way you are drifting toward sleep now, and set it down inside Jupiter, you could do that again, and again more than 1,300 times over, and there would still be space left in the folds of hydrogen and helium for a little more. 1,300 worlds like your own, nested inside this one pale gold giant, each with its own weather, its own tides, its own quiet turning, all of them small enough to fit inside a single storm-wrapped body that has no ground to stand on anywhere. It is a number too large to hold as a picture, so you do not try to hold it as a picture. You simply let it rest against you as a feeling, smallness, and no danger in the smallness at all. And this vastness reaches even beyond the visible planet. The magnetic field spinning up from the metallic hydrogen far beneath you, the one that painted those curtains of green and violet light near the poles, stretches so far out into the dark around Jupiter that if it were something you could see with your bare eyes from where you began this night, hanging near Earth, it would appear larger across the sky than the sun itself. A field of force wide enough to dwarf a star, invisible, silent, holding entire moons inside its reach, the way a hand might hold a scattering of pale stones. It bends the paths of charged particles for millions of miles before its influence finally, faintly, gives way to the emptiness between the planets. You are inside something whose edges you cannot find. Picture, if it helps, standing on some far shoreline on a clear night and watching one single shape claim more of the sky than the sun ever could at noon. Not blinding, not burning, just wide beyond anything a human eye was built to measure, filling every direction you might think to look. That is the shape of the field carrying you now, an invisible sky-sized net stretched out around this planet, catching particles that came from a star 93 million miles away and bending them into ribbons of light near the poles. You are drifting somewhere inside that net, far beneath its outer edge, closer to the place where the field is born than to the place where it finally fades into nothing. It would be easy, told this way, for the numbers alone to feel like something looming, something that presses in. But that is not the shape this takes here, on this particular step of the staircase, and it is not the shape it needs to take for you. Vastness like this, when you let it, does something gentler than frightening you. It excuses you. A world built from 1,300 Earths and a field wider than the sun does not need anything from you at all. It does not need you to understand it fully, or measure it correctly, or even stay awake long enough to finish picturing it. It simply is, patient and enormous and entirely unconcerned, the way the tide is unconcerned with the footprint it is about to erase. There is a kind of rest available only at this scale, the rest of being genuinely, harmlessly small. Think of how much easier it is to fall asleep in a large, dim room than under a single bright light pointed straight at your face. How the darkness at the edges of a big space feels less like absence and more like room to exist in. This is that feeling, magnified until it becomes almost architectural. You are a small, warm shape drifting somewhere inside a body so much larger and so much older than you that your presence changes nothing about it, asks nothing of it, disturbs nothing in its endless turning. The storms will keep circling whether or not you notice them. The field will keep spinning whether or not you understand it. You are simply here, held. And for once, being held does not come with any expectation attached. Nothing down here needs you to perform, to solve, to keep watch. You are allowed to simply be small and carried. Every step of the staircase so far has asked something different of you. To notice the cold of the topmost clouds, to trace the bands and the ancient red storm, to feel the first heavy drops of real rain, to trust the thickening dark as air gave way to something like an ocean. This step asks nothing at all. It only asks you to notice how little your own weight matters against a body built from 1,300 worlds and wrapped in a field wide enough to blot out a star. There is a lightness in that discovery, the particular lightness of realizing you were never meant to carry any of this on your own. The planet carries itself. It has been carrying itself for more than 4.5 billion years, long before anyone above the clouds thought to wonder what its size might mean. And it will go on doing so long after this night has ended and you have drifted somewhere else entirely, into sleep, into morning, into whatever comes next. There is a particular tenderness in that arrangement, if you let yourself feel it rather than think it. Being the smaller thing inside something far greater is not always a loss of self. Sometimes it is the opposite, a kind of setting down, the way you might finally exhale when someone taller and steadier takes your hand at the edge of a crowd. Jupiter does not know you are here, and that not knowing is itself a form of safety. Nothing this large has any reason to turn its attention towards something this small, and so you are free to drift through it entirely unnoticed, entirely unbothered, folded into a scale where your worries, the ones you carried down the first few steps of this staircase, back when the rain was thin and the world still had ordinary weight, simply have nowhere left to attach themselves. They do not fit here. There isn't enough surface for them to rest on. Somewhere on the surface world you came from, size is so often tangled up with danger, the larger animal, the larger wave, the larger storm rolling in over the hills, each one a thing to measure and be wary of. Down here, that tangle finally comes undone. Size, at this depth, has nothing left to do with threat. It is simply room. It is simply the sheer, uncomplicated fact of how much space one planet can hold, how many Earths could nest inside its folds of hydrogen and never touch its center, how far a single magnetic field can stretch before it finally loosens its grip on the dark. You are allowed to let that fact wash over you, the way warmth spreads through a hand held near a low fire, without needing to brace against it, without needing to understand every mile of it before you can rest inside it. So let the size of this place become, instead of something to measure, something to lean into. 1,300 Earths. A field of invisible force too wide for the mind to hold in one glance. All of it turning slowly around a center you have not reached yet, a center that has been sitting down here, warm and hidden, since long before there was anyone above the clouds to wonder about it. The staircase has one more landing below this one, the deepest of them all, and unlike the steps above, the ice clouds, the lightning, the helium rain, the shimmering metallic depths, this last step does not lead to another kind of weather at all. It leads somewhere stiller than that, somewhere the storms above were never able to reach, a buried heart wrapped in more pressure and more silence than anything you have passed through so far. You do not need to hurry toward it. There is no clock keeping time down here, no reason the last step should arrive any faster than it wants to. For now it is enough to rest on this wide landing, small within something immense, held by a field that reaches farther than you can picture and asks nothing of you in return, while somewhere far below, at the very bottom of the staircase, something ancient and warm waits in perfect stillness for you to finally arrive. And being this small, being held by something so much older than you, is exactly what lets you keep going, past the shimmering hydrogen and its secret magnetism, down toward the very last step of the staircase, the one waiting at the bottom of all that falling rain. You do not need to brace for it. You only need to keep drifting, the way you have been drifting this whole night, and let the planet bring the center up to meet you, because that is closer to the truth than any idea of plunging down to find it. Here is the first surprise waiting at the bottom step, and it arrives like good news. There is no ball down there. Picture, if you like, the tidy diagrams from old books, a hard round core sitting at the middle of the giant the way a stone sits at the middle of a peach, a clean boundary you could reach out and touch. Let that picture go. What is actually there is softer than that, and stranger than that, and somehow more restful than that, because it refuses to be one hard thing at all. It is fuzzy. It is dilute. Rock and metal and ice, the same raw materials that once gathered themselves into the young planet, are not sitting apart in a sealed sphere, but are dissolved, slowly, up into the metallic hydrogen around them, the way the last of a color bleeds outward into water until you can no longer say exactly where it starts. There is no sharp line down here, no threshold to cross, no wall to lean against. There has not been a hard boundary anywhere on this whole descent, and there is not one now, at the place that was supposed to be the most solid part of all. You can let that be a comfort rather than a puzzle. All night you have been told that Jupiter has no ground, that it is weather stacked on weather, air thickening into ocean with nothing to strike as you fall. It turns out that even the heart follows the same patient rule. It is not an object hiding inside the planet. It is a smearing of heaviness into the deepest layer. A mingling so patient and so thorough that scientists studying it now speak of it as a core, the way you might speak of a scent filling a room rather than a coin sitting on a table. Somewhere among that mingled material there is perhaps 10 Earth masses of it, perhaps 20, rock and metal and ice folded together and diffused upward through hundreds of thousands of kilometers of hydrogen until the very idea of an edge has dissolved along with everything else. You are allowed to picture it as something less like a stone and more like a low, steady weight settled at the bottom of a very deep, very still pool, spreading rather than sitting. Think of how this happened, if it helps to have a story for it, rather than only a fact. Long ago, in the planet's earliest years, something closer to that old picture may have existed for a while. A denser knot of rock and ice sitting at the center. The seed that let the young world gather up so much surrounding hydrogen and helium in the first place. But billions of years of that crushing weight from above, billions of years of heat working on material that was never meant to stay separate forever, have worn the edges of that seed away. Bit by bit, the boundary between core and ocean has softened. The way a lump of sugar softens and spreads through tea it has sat in for a very long time, until stirring it further makes no difference at all. What was once perhaps a defined shape has become instead a gradient, a slow fading, from mostly heavy material near the middle to mostly hydrogen further out, with no place along that fade where you could point and say, here. This is where the core ends. Even time itself seems to move differently down here, unhurried past any human accounting, patient enough to dissolve stone into gas across an age longer than the whole of Earth's own story. And here comes the second surprise, the one that might seem, at first telling, like a reason to tense rather than to rest. This buried, formless heart is hot, not warm in the way a held hand is warm, not the mild heat of the upper decks where lightning once flickered through water clouds. This is heat on a scale that borrows its number from a star. Down at the bottom of the staircase, the temperature climbs to somewhere near 24,000 degrees, hotter than the visible surface of the sun itself, hot enough that if you tried to hold that number in your mind on its own, it might jolt you rather than settle you. so let it be held differently. Notice, first, that heat like this is not the heat of burning, not the heat of anything reaching toward you or hungry for fuel. It is simply the leftover warmth of becoming, the slow, ancient memory of a planet's birth, when all this material fell together under its own gravity and grew warm the way any great mass grows warm when it gathers itself out of scattered rubble and dust across a very long time. Some of that first warmth has never finished leaving. It has been kept. Generation of pressure after generation of pressure, cradled deep beneath every rein of the staircase you have descended, banked like the last coals of an enormous, unhurried fire that has had 4.5 billion years to settle into something closer to a permanent glow than a blaze. It is heat with nowhere urgent to go, heat with nothing to consume, heat that simply is, the way the coldest breath of the topmost clouds simply was, both of them just 2 more temperatures a vast body can hold at once, without any contradiction at all. And notice, second, what surrounds that heat and answers it. The layers pressing down from above are not thin here. They are the accumulated weight of an entire planet. Every band and jet and drop of rain you passed through on the way down, every thickening of gas into liquid into metal, all of it stacked and stacked again until the pressure at the bottom is many millions of times what rests on you where you began this night, at the very top of the clouds. That pressure does something almost impossible to picture. It holds this furnace-hot material so tightly, so completely, on every side at once, that motion becomes difficult. Disturbance becomes difficult. Anything like turbulence becomes difficult. The heat cannot leap or lash or reach outward the way fire does, where there is room to spread. It can only sit evenly, held equally from every direction, the pressure and the temperature locked together into something closer to stillness than heat has any right to be. It is not a hushed place because it is cold. It is a hushed place because it is squeezed into perfect balance, wrapped so tightly by the whole planet above it that nothing can move quickly even if it wanted to. So let yourself hold both of those truths together, the way the planet holds them, an unimaginable heat and an unimaginable calm, resting inside the same buried point, neither one canceling the other, both of them simply true at once. This is the bottom of the staircase. This is the last step, the heaviest layer of all, and it is not a violent place waiting at the end of the descent. It is a warm, hidden center, sealed inside pressure so complete that even a temperature borrowed from a star has nowhere to go and nothing to do but glow there, patiently, the way a coal glows long after the flame above it has gone quiet. Everything that fell as rain on the steps above, the ammonia crystals, the water drops, the helium beads sinking through liquid hydrogen, all of it was, in its own way, heading toward this single settled place, this last landing where falling finally stops. You can rest here for a moment, at the very center of the largest planet, warmer at its heart than the star that lights its days, and feel no urgency in that heat at all, only the sense of having arrived somewhere old and cared for and completely enclosed. There is something almost tender about a heart built this way, diffuse instead of solid. Its heaviest material given over freely into the very ocean it once helped to gather. Nothing down here is holding itself apart, guarding some hard little kingdom of its own at the center of all that hydrogen. Everything has agreed, over these billions of patient years, to belong to the same great mingled whole, heat and pressure and rock and metal, all folded into one another until separateness itself has faded away. If the topmost clouds were where this night began, cold and pale and drifting, then this is where it settles, warm and low and unmoving. The final landing at the foot of a staircase built entirely from weather, all the way down to a heart that glows without ever needing to burn. And it is worth wondering, in this stillest of all the rooms you have visited tonight, how anyone came to know that such a place exists at all. No eye has ever seen it. No light escapes from that deep to carry a picture of it upward through the clouds, past the aurorae, past the helium rain, past every cloud deck you have already drifted through this evening. And yet, somehow, across centuries of patient, unhurried watching, this hidden, fuzzy 24,000-degree heart at the bottom of the staircase became something we could describe, something we could almost picture together, tonight, from so very far above it, long before any of us were ever born to wonder about it at all. And that hidden heart, warm and wrapped in its own stillness at the very base of the staircase, has never once been touched by any hand, never been seen by any eye, and yet somehow we have come to know it is there, known the way you know the shape of a room in the dark, by feeling the edges rather than by looking. It is worth resting here a moment longer, not descending any further now, but drifting instead sideways in time, back through the long, patient chain of watchers who built this staircase step by step before you ever set foot on it tonight. Every landing you have passed through, the cold cream-topped clouds, the ancient turning storm, the first heavy rain, the warm merging ocean, the deep helium drizzle, the humming metal core. Each one was first only a guess, and then a faint signal, and then, slowly, across centuries, a certainty. Someone had to notice first. Let your mind follow them the way you might follow a low light moving from window to window down a long hallway, unhurried, sure of its path. It begins with a small telescope and one steady hand. 4 centuries ago, in a quiet town in Italy, a man ground his own lenses and pointed a simple brass tube at the night sky, and there, hanging beside the pale gold giant, he found 4 small points of light that did not belong to the background stars, because, unlike the stars, they moved. Night after night he returned to them, and night after night they rearranged themselves, swinging from one side of the planet to the other, vanishing behind it and reappearing, keeping a private, orderly rhythm all their own. He understood that these small lights were moons, worlds in their own right, circling not the Earth, but Jupiter. And in that single observation, the giant planet stopped being only a bright wanderer in the sky and became a place with its own family gathered around it, its own quiet gravity, holding 4 companions in patient, obedient orbits. Those 4 moons still carry his name, and they still trace the same unhurried loops tonight, high above the cloud tops you rested on earlier this evening, faithful and unbothered by all the centuries that have passed beneath them. For a long while after that, the giant kept its deeper secrets close, visible only as a banded disk of light, its storms and its rain and its buried warmth folding invisibly beneath what any lens on Earth could resolve. It took the better part of 4 centuries and the slow arrival of a different kind of instrument before anyone came close enough to look past the clouds at all. In the late 1970s, 2 small spacecraft, sent out years earlier on long, looping paths through the solar system, drifted past the giant one after another, cameras turned outward, sending home the first close photographs anyone had ever seen of those cream and tan bands up close. The great red spot resolved at last into a real storm with real structure, swirling and layered rather than a mere smudge of color. Not long after, 2 more spacecraft followed the same general path, moving faster and looking closer still. Catching lightning flickering faintly in the deep clouds, catching thin rings no one had known were there, catching moons of Jupiter's own with volcanoes and hidden oceans. Each flyby lasted only days, a brief, low pass on the way to somewhere else, and yet each one added another layer to the staircase. Another step confirmed by real eyes rather than by patient calculation alone. Then, in the closing months of a year some 3 decades past, something new happened, something braver than any flyby. A small probe, carried most of the way by a larger companion craft, was released and allowed to fall, entering the atmosphere at a tremendous speed, slowed by a heat shield and then by a parachute, drifting down into the very clouds you rested upon earlier tonight, and then further past them, into the heavier rain, into the thickening dark, sending back readings of temperature and pressure and wind for just under an hour before the crushing weight of all that deepening atmosphere finally silenced it. In that short hour, it told us things no telescope ever could, how fierce the winds truly blow beneath the calm-looking bands, how the pressure climbs, how the light fades, a single small voice calling back up the staircase from a landing none of us will ever visit ourselves. Its brief transmission, a kind of gift left behind for everyone who would wonder afterward what it is like down there. But even that brave descent stopped long before reaching anything like the fuzzy, buried heart resting at the very bottom, wrapped in stillness and pressure and heat beyond any spacecraft's endurance. No probe could ever be built to survive that far down, no hull patient enough to hold against a place hotter than the surface of a star and squeezed by the weight of an entire planet above it. And yet we know, with real confidence, that it is there. We know it not because anyone looked at it directly, but because a spacecraft in careful, looping orbit around the giant, arriving a little over a decade ago, learned to feel it instead of see it, passing close again and again, letting the planet's gravity tug on it just slightly differently, from one pass to the next, tiny wobbles too small to notice, unless you are listening for exactly that. Patient enough to measure the same small effect over and over until a pattern emerges. Those faint tugs, mapped with extraordinary care across dozens of orbits, revealed that the mass of the planet is not smoothly and evenly arranged the way a simple ball of gas over a hard little core would be, but instead spreads and blurs toward the center. Rock and metal and ice dissolved up and mixed into the metallic layers around it, rather than sitting apart in a clean, separate sphere. A core felt only by the way it bends the path of something moving thousands of miles above it, the whole vast staircase, read not by eye but by touch, the way you might sense someone else's slow breathing beside you in the dark. Think, for a moment, of how little those 2 early flybys actually carried with them. Cameras built with the technology of their decade, instruments that could measure only what passed directly in front of them during a handful of days. And yet, how much was pieced together afterward? Engineers on the ground spending years turning brief signals into full pictures. The way you might spend a long evening turning a handful of overheard words into an understanding of an entire conversation. None of it happened quickly. Between the small telescope and the falling probe stretched more than 300 years of nothing but watching, calculating, waiting for the next window, the next launch, the next chance to look a little closer. A staircase this deep was never going to be mapped in an afternoon. The spacecraft that did the final, deepest work, the one that circled for years, feeling for a wobble too small to matter to anything except a very patient instrument, was not trying to see the core at all in the way a camera sees a coastline. It was listening to gravity the way you might listen, half asleep, to a house settling around you. A low creak here, a faint shift there. Nothing dramatic. And yet enough, gathered and averaged across enough nights, to tell you something true about the whole structure holding you. Pass after pass, low and fast over the cloud tops, it measured how the giant's pull bent its own path by fractions too small to describe in any ordinary way. And from those fractions came a picture of mass spread wide through the middle of the planet, rather than gathered into one hard, separate ball. The buried heart, not a stone at the bottom of a well, but something more like a wide, warm cushion, blurred at its edges into the layers around it. It is a strange comfort, if you let it settle, that a place none of us could ever visit is nonetheless a place we have come to know this well, mapped patiently across 400 years by people who were mostly at home, mostly looking upward from quiet rooms and quiet observatories, content to watch and record, and wait for the pattern to reveal itself in its own unhurried time. Small telescope, then careful mathematics, then brief flybys, then one small falling probe, then a spacecraft content to circle for years, just to feel a wobble too faint for any single glance to catch, each generation adding one more gentle, confirming footstep to a staircase none of them would ever climb down themselves. There is no need to hold on to any of the names or the dates, only the shape of the patience matters. The sense that something this large and this hidden was never known all at once, but earned in small, unhurried pieces, one faint signal at a time, across lifetimes longer than any single watcher's own. Somewhere far above where you are resting now, those same 4 small moons your mind wandered to a while ago are still tracing their old orbits, still keeping their quiet appointment with the giant they circle, indifferent to the hour, indifferent to how heavy your eyelids have grown, simply continuing. The way the whole vast, layered, weather-filled world beneath them continues, turning through every one of its stacked and heavy rains, all the way down to that warm buried heart, and then outward again, up through the metal and the helium drizzle and the deep dark ocean and the lightning-lit clouds, up past the cold cream-topped bands, up to the calm floating height where this long staircase first began. Everything settled now, everything known, everything simply continuing, unhurried and complete and utterly unconcerned with anything except turning, slowly, through the dark, while your own breathing, somewhere far below all of that vast and patient watching, grows just a little slower, and a little easier, and a little further from needing to think about any of it at all. Tonight has been about a staircase that isn't really a staircase at all, just Jupiter's own weather, going on and on beneath itself, layer after layer, further than any staircase could ever reach. Tonight has been about arriving at the cloud tops first, that pale hushed summit where the planet first showed you its true size, and where nothing asked anything of you at all. Tonight has been about the weather layers beneath that, the long tan and white bands turning at their own unhurried pace, the one great storm that has been breathing in place for centuries, older than every ship that has ever passed it, and the first fat rains beginning to fall through air, too warm and too deep for you to ever feel on your own skin. Tonight has been about sinking further still, into the ocean with no shore, where helium itself lets go and falls as rain through hydrogen, pressed so hard it starts to behave like metal, dark and vast, and utterly indifferent to the idea of a person standing anywhere near it. Tonight has been about the buried heart at the center of it all, small compared to everything above it, blurred at its edges rather than sharply drawn, a fuzzy core instead of a hard stone one, and the patient watchers back here on our own small world, who spent years reading the planet's faint gravitational size just to know that heart was even there. None of this needs anything from you tonight. Not your attention, not your understanding, not even your belief. Jupiter has been raining metal and helium and ordinary water for longer than there have been ears to hear it, and it will keep doing so long after this voice has stopped, long after you have drifted past every word of it into something wordless. You are not required to follow the thread any further. You can drop it right here, on whichever stair you happen to be resting on, and it will still be there, patient, unbothered, whenever you happen to think of it again. If your eyes are already closed, that is exactly where they should be. Another quiet exploration is already waiting on the screen for you, and you do not have to do a single thing about it. Just let it begin on its own, drifting in the way this one drifted in, so there is nothing to reach for, nothing to decide, nothing to keep you here at the surface of your own mind. Before you go, here is a small, easy thing to loosen into. Not to answer, not tonight, maybe not ever. Which step on the staircase would you have wanted to rest on longest? The pale cloud tops, the wide turning storm, the helium rain, or that small buried heart at the very center? You do not have to know. You do not have to reach for it. Just let the question sit somewhere far off, like a light in a window you are not walking toward. Feel the weight of the blanket, or the mattress, or whatever is holding you right now. Holding you the way that whole enormous planet holds its own weather, layer under layer, without any effort at all. Feel your breath ease on its own, without you asking it to. Feel the room around you go a little further away, a little less important, a little less here. There is nowhere else you need to be, and nothing left to carry. Let it all go, all the way down, past the clouds, past the storm, past the rain, past the metal ocean, down to that small fuzzy heart of rest at the center of you. Sleep well.